it's a lot of video games, a lot of gaming online, playing Warzone. Um, just trying to work out in my parking lot, uh, and just kind of chilling at the house with my dogs. I haven't really been doing a whole ton, listening to the news and finding out the updates with the UFC and what's going on. Now that it seems that all the events are being postponed now, for the moment until Fight Island is ready to go. Um, I'm trying to just get in shape, just get as best shape as I can, what I have, and just be ready, for when Dana calls and, is ready to put the fight on.
Where are you right now? Like in relation to the world, are you you're obviously home. I'm in Canada, for example. Are you in Tampa or?
Yeah, Tampa, Florida. Yep, that's where I'm at right now.
What sorts of rules and regulations do they have there? Like here, I'm not allowed to even leave the house really,
Oh, really?
without getting fined, unless I'm going to the grocery store.
Okay.
Do they have that sort of rules, or you can get out?
No, it's pretty lenient here. Like I can leave the house anytime I want to. I can go to the park. I can go to the grocery store. I can go to any stores that are open, like Home Depot. Um, you can go pick up, food from Chipotle or McDonald's or wherever you want to go. There's really nobody's, going to fine you for being out. There's no curfew. Um, it's pretty loose here. It's not like lockdown like you have, or I think California is pretty strict, and then I know New York's pretty strict, but Florida's pretty lenient as far as the rest of the North America is concerned.
So it's pretty good in terms of being able to get out and train. You can go for runs and things like that. Do you have a setup at your house as well, where you can get some work in? Obviously, you don't have access to your coaches or anything like that, but
Right. Yeah. No. I've actually been doing a lot of workouts with my girlfriend I live in an apartment complex, and in our parking lot, I've had her holding mitts for me. We just started doing. So I went to my CrossFit gym where I train at, and I rented. So my CrossFit gym, they're renting out equipment for people if they want to do home workouts at their house. So I got a few kettlebells. I got a wall ball, a slam ball, a big old 50-pound dumbbell, and I had my strength conditioning coach put together workouts for me to do every day, and he knows the exact equipment I have. So I've been doing those every single day. Like I said, I have my girlfriend hold mitts for me. I have these two strike mask pads that go on the telephone pole. So that kind of acts as my heavy bag for the moment. So I'll hit that, you know, some point during the day. The only thing I'm not really getting in right now is wrestling and jujitsu, because she's not like she's not like the most, she's kind of dainty, so I can't really do jujitsu or wrestling with her, but she can hold mitts for me and drill with me.
as for I mean, for your next fight, is there a timeline you're looking at? Obviously, you don't have access to that to your
Hmm.
coaches and, like you said, wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Are you looking to wait it out and get a good proper training camp in, or are you just if the call comes, you're ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think now that the way that it's looking, because it seems like we might be stuck like this for a while now, um I might just try and get in as good shape as possible, just doing what I'm doing, and then I'm gonna have to go up a weight class. I don't know if I can make 145, with the amount of training that I'm doing. It'd be really tough. Like I am a big 45er. Um, and then I would just have to do, I do know how to fight. Like, so that's the thing, is like, I was talking about this with somebody else, online, and he was saying, don't you have the knowledge, to try, like, to fight? Like, if someone told me to fight tomorrow, I could fight. Like, I wouldn't have to, like, it's not like I'm gonna forget everything I know how to do. Like, I would be able to go in there, defend myself, come out with a win if I could. The only thing that wouldn't be there would be any of the weight cut, and your conditioning obviously wouldn't be there. So that'd be the biggest thing, would be working on conditioning, and then working on just the weight cut, which obviously I'm not gonna cut 30 plus pounds to get to 45. I'd rather just go up to 55 and cut 25 or so.
So
So
what
my timeline would be, I had planned. I told my agent like right after my fight, I wanted to fight immediately. Like it seems like immediately to me, but I told him end of May, June or July. At this moment, being in a little less than halfway through April, I'd probably say June or July would still be viable for me. I just wouldn't be at like peak tip top shape because I'm not, like I said, I'm not wrestling. The only way to get in shape for wrestling is to wrestle.
Yeah.
Same thing for jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, you can kind of like get by. You can rest in spots. It's kind of easy to take, some rest off, but wrestling is probably the hardest thing.
Yeah, because your last fight was on February 29th against Spike. Looking back, would you have taken that fight? Because he stepped in on short notice, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even consider that short notice because I mean it was like 5 weeks notice, which to me in my pro career is not short notice. I've taken fights, short notice than that. But what's funny is I would have taken the fight anyway. To be honest, personally, I thought it was a more dangerous fight. So we had a choice of two people. Either we would fight Spike or Derek Minner, and who fought on that card the same night.
Yeah.
And my agent and my head coach, they both agreed that they thought Spike was the better fight to take. And I thought he was a little more dangerous, just because he has that natural knockout power. He's 8-1, and he's only lost a split decision. But we were going. I guess we were going off based off his last couple of fights, how he looked as far as his striking. Like if you noticed, he was getting tore up, in those first rounds, but he ended them both with knockouts. You could have. I could have chose Derek Minner. Derek Minner could have submitted me in the first round or knocked me out. You know what I'm saying? So it really doesn't matter. Who I chose. It really was just a bunch of things that were going on that I just wasn't there mentally, or maybe even, well, I would just say mentally, to be honest. Like I could have won. I'd say 9 times out of 10, you throw me in there with Spike and I win.
Is there a name that's coming to mind for your next fight, or is it just whoever the UFC offers?
No, I mean if I had won, I would have names. You know what I mean? Like I thought if let's say I had won against Spike, right, in like an impressive fashion, I probably would have said like Alex Caceres or I don't know, somebody who's someone who has a name, or I might have asked for um Steven Peterson, because we didn't get to do it. And then if I was coming off a win, I could have called him, or I could have taken that fight or asked for it, I guess. But now coming off a loss, I don't really have a lot of play or a lot of power to really like say like, hey, Steven, like let's still do it. I want to fight you. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm kind of just, it's going to be whoever the UFC thinks I should fight. I don't really have any specific names to throw out there.
What was it like? I mean, obviously, you won your fight to get into the UFC to get the contract, in probably the most devastating style I've seen on the show. What was it like to finally get that call? To get the contract in your hand. Must have been like a sense of relief. What exactly was that feeling like?
Yeah, man, it was amazing because it was just like, it was like validation. I've been a pro since 2013, so about 7 years or so. And it was I've only had 10 fights. Well, now 11. But up to that point, I had only had 9 fights as a pro. And, it just seemed like a long road. And I've been training since I was 16, and I'm 30 now. And it was like kind of my last shot. Like it was like, I was on a 3-fight win streak. And if I had lost, I probably would have just been done because, trying to put together another 3 or 4 fight win streak would have been a long time. And that was the big shot. It was in front of the bosses. It was in front of Dana and Sean and Mick. And it really just felt like I said, like validated, like I'm supposed to be here. Like, I finally made it to my end goal. Well, not my end goal, to one of my big goals, to make it to the UFC. Obviously, the end goal would be to be the champion. But, once I made it, that was pretty much the biggest feeling I had was validation.
What so yeah, so you said you want to be champion. So let's stick with the champions here. Like what's your prediction for Khabib and now potentially Tony? If that fight were to happen, what's your take on it?
Um, Man, that's the fight that I don't think we'll ever get. To be honest, it's been scheduled what this 5 times now,
Five,
and
yeah.
it's failed. And I don't know. That's such a good fight. Like I feel like it needs to happen. Like I don't care if they're about to retire and they're both on like a 6 fight losing streak and they're about to be kicked out of the UFC. I still need to see that fight. I think we've all deserved to see that fight by now. Because I mean, where else can it? I mean, you have to wait. Let's say Khabib loses his next fight. Now we lose that sheen off that fight, right? Or if Tony fights somebody else, and then we lose the sheen off the fight because he lost. Like you have two guys that are at their peak right now. Tony's on a 12-fight win streak. Khabib's undefeated. It just kind of sucks, to be honest. I mean, it just sucks that we had a pandemic come through and stop the fifth chance at making this fight happen.
Yeah, it almost has like a Pacquiao Mayweather feel where, they were supposed to fight so many times. Everyone was talking about, everybody wanted to see it. And then when it finally happened, they were 4 or 5 years out of their prime.
Right.
And I feel like we're gonna get the fight. It's just gonna be way past its prime, and it's not gonna have the same value. Um, and as for the featherweight division, obviously Volkanovski just beat Holloway. In a rematch, do you think it plays out the same way, or do you see it differently?
Man, Volkanovski, he's a little train. Like he's like a little bull, and he's got very high level striking. Even for a short guy. But the thing is, like Max Holloway doesn't have a long reach, right? He's got shorter arms than Volkanovski, I think. So, the thing that Max is really good at is keeping his range and his distance. Even though he has short arms, he uses his height to his advantage, and he does have long legs. So I think in a rematch, I think Max, I want to say he'll learn what mistakes he made from the last fight. I just don't think he fought like he normally would, or he just wasn't able to adapt to whatever Volkanovski was doing. Like every time Max would or Volkanovski would throw a combo, Max would counter, and then Volkanovski would recounter. He wasn't able to counter back on Volkanovski's counters. It was just a night, that Max just wasn't there, or either that or Volkanovski was just on point that night. That was his night, and he looked phenomenal. And I think in a rematch, I think it'd be a completely different fight. I think Max probably, I don't think he's not gonna put him away, but I think he definitely outpoints Volkanovski in a rematch.
Yeah, I think very similar. I didn't think it was the best Max we've ever seen, and I think Dustin Poirier kind of laid a blueprint to how to beat him. You got to outbox him and not get tired.
Right.
I thought that was yeah. So I think Dustin Poirier set the blueprint. Back to your career. What sort of changes are you going to make for your next fight? Like I think, the fight you lost to Spike. I think it was he started swinging crazy right out of the gate. Do you think you have to come like fight early, start the fight earlier? Do you think you need to weather the storm? What sort of changes do you think you're going to have to make for the next fight to avoid a very similar result?
Yeah. I definitely think I need to work on my aggression more. I should be able to fight kind of like the Diaz brothers, but with a little, but like a Diaz brother slash Connor, right? Because if you look at the way Connor fights, like people think that he's like an aggressive fighter. He really isn't. He's a counter striker. But what he does is he imposes pressure on you, and then as soon as you decide to strike on him or come forward at him, he slips back and then he hits you. right? And he's just a very good counter striker with very intense pressure. It makes it feel like he's being aggressive on you, but he's not. So I think if I can be like, 'cause I like Connor's style. I like being technical. I'm not a wild fighter. I'm not even a huge output fighter for that much. Like, if you watch most of my fights, I'm not really throwing a lot. Like, I'm not spamming punch. I'm not like the Diaz brothers, right? I'm not going to throw 200 or 300 punches in a fight for the most part. Which, I probably could, because I know conditioning wise and when I'm training, I throw a lot of punches. But I think when it comes to the fight, I try to take as little damage as possible, which most fights I don't really get hit a lot. So probably work on my aggression. Um, Man, it was just, I mean, it wasn't like I was doing anything bad against Spike. He definitely caught me with that kick. Well, I haven't seen him throw a head kick, other than one other fight that I saw with him as an amateur, in his fights. So when he ran forward, and I think he threw like 2 or 3 punches, right, and I just slid back like I did the first couple times, and then he threw that kick over the top. I actually had my hand up, where a boxing glove, it would have been blocked, but we're wearing 4-ounce gloves, and it went right over the top, and it hit me. And my plan going into the fight, even in the back room, I was talking to my wrestling coach, our plan was not to shoot on Spike at all. Like, we weren't going to shoot him, like, because he's short. It's hard to take short guys down or to get that low and put a lot of power on him. So if you notice, when he came at me in that final sequence, he rushed forward at me. I slid to the side. I hit him with a clean right hand, and then he threw a hook, and I went right under the hook, straight into a takedown. And I think maybe somewhere in the back of my mind, my brain was like, "Yo, he just kicked us in the face. Like, he might be trying to get aggressive now because he knows that he caught me." So, my mind at that moment was like takedown. Right after that, which normally I wouldn't do that. I can't remember the last time I've actually shot a takedown on somebody in a fight other than Stephen Wynn. But even Stephen Wynn, I wasn't even really shooting. I was really just level changing just to make him back up off of me because he's so aggressive coming forward. Like, people thought those were actual takedown attempts, and they really weren't. I do that in training all the time. Like, if people come forward, I'll grab the ankle and literally just pull it out. And if you fall on the ground, then you fall. If you don't, I don't really care. I was just getting you to back up off me. So I guess really it just, I don't know, just tuning some things up. I really wasn't there mentally. That was a big part of it. I was definitely there. Like, I was in shape. There was no like I could have gone 3 5s, easy. It's really just a mental kill mode. Like, I wasn't in the flow state. I didn't have like my killer mindset going. It was a really weird fight. I've only had 2 times where I felt like that mentally, and those are my 2 pro losses. So I think if you notice on my record, whenever I lose, I don't lose back. I've never lost back to back, and I think I'm going to come back. I really feel bad for whoever I'm about to fight next because I've figured a lot of things out, and if I do end up in that bad mental state that day, how to get out of it or how to get me to where I need to be. I've already talked to my coaches about this and my teammates, so I'm just excited for the next fight because like I said, people didn't get to see the real me fight in the cage. They saw an empty hollow shell go out there and not do very well.
So for people who watch that fight, is there a fight where you'd say, look, that's not me, this is the fight you got to watch? Is it the Stephen Nguyen fight, or is there another one on there that you're like, that's who I am as a fighter?
I would say you can go watch the solo fight. The solo fight's on YouTube. Anybody can access that. Any other fights you can't even find online. So if you really want to find one fight that I could actually tell people to go watch the Solo Staley fight versus me in Conflict on YouTube. That was probably one of my best performances against a guy who was Solo at the time was 8-2. He had finished all of his opponents. He had never been finished. And I was actually coming off of a loss. I was 3-1.
Yeah, 3-1.
I was 3-1. I lost so that loss that I had just before that was for the Florida State title. And I fought this kid Cam, and it was one of those fights where I walked into the cage and it felt like I just walked out of bed. Like, I wasn't hyped up. It wasn't anything. He was already at 90% when we started the fight. He came at me hard, and I was at like 15, 20%. And it was a competitive fight. It was only one round, but it was a real back and forth, like really intense fight. And then it just got to a point where my legs got real heavy, and I actually had a really deep power guillotine choke, and I was choking him, and we both slipped and fell, and my body was heavy. And as I was getting up, he ran around to my back, and that's when he locked in the rear naked choke. I actually pulled the top hand down to correct the fence, and then he modified it and took the choke anyway. And that was a really, really crappy loss. So after that, obviously taking a fight with Solo was kind of scary. It's like we're going from my loss to someone who's arguably better than the kid I just lost to and more of a beast, you know?
Is there a so obviously Fight Island is a go. Is that somewhere you'd compete against? You know, an empty or compete? Is that a place where you would compete? Obviously, no one in attendance. Don't even know where it is really.
Yeah.
Is that something that excites you, being able to fight on an island, or is it something that you're like, oh, whatever, I'll do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be kind of cool, to be honest. It for one, it'd probably be just like the Contender Series. It'd be pretty quiet, you know, because in the Contender Series there were people there, but only like 3 or 4 of them were there to watch me fight. So there wasn't a lot of noise going on. And then, you know, having this like, you know, radical event going on an island out in the middle somewhere, and you don't know where you're going. It just seems like a movie like type of thing, experience to do. And then Dana's talking about how like fighters can, before he has actual events, that fighters can go out there and train, you know, so they can go out there, train, get in shape, and then when they have the event and they fight, then they can fight out there. So I mean, why not? Like, you know, I'm down for Fight Island. I think it's dope. I think it sounds so cool.
It's like some like Hunger Games type thing. Like it's crazy. Is there a movie you're watching, or is there any TV shows you're watching during quarantine? That's some non-MMA content here to finish it up. Is there anything that you'd recommend to anybody watching? Like, you got to watch this. Obviously, Tiger King has been coming up a lot. Is there another one you've watched that you're high on?
Ozark. Ozark season 3 just came out a few weeks ago, and I killed that in about 2 days. If you've never seen Ozark, man, it's like Breaking Bad is like right here. Ozark's pretty close to that. Like, Ozark's really good.
I'm really behind in my movies and my my TV shows. I'm doing a lot of catching up. I'm on Breaking Bad right now.
Okay.
So after that, I'll probably jump into to Ozark. Everyone's talking about it as well. So
it's so good. You'll love it.
All right, man. Well, thank you for taking the time, man. And I hope training and everything goes well. And hope to see you back in there. Hopefully on Fight Island. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man.
Be safe out there.
All right, man. You too. Keep washing your hands.
I will. You too.